Behind the legendary marches, the roaring speeches, and the fierce pursuit of civil rights lies a question few have dared to explore. Who is Jesse Jackson when the spotlight fades? Long hailed as a towering figure in American history, Jackson's public persona is one of passion and principle, but the private life of this civil rights titan offers a richer, more complex narrative. Away from the podium, Jackson resides in a stately Chicago estate that reflects not just his wealth, but his legacy, carefully curated, powerful in silence, and built on decades of advocacy. From the streets of the segregated South to the political front lines of Washington, he's been many things: a preacher, a protester, a candidate, and a cultural icon. Yet behind the scenes lies a life filled with comfort, contradictions, and calculated distance from public scrutiny. This is not just the story of a man, it's the unveiling of the world he built behind closed doors. A world where legacy whispers louder than protest chants, where family dinners take place in wood-paneled dining rooms instead of city halls, and where luxury meets the memory of struggle. As we peel back the curtain, we discover not only what Jesse Jackson has done, but how he truly lives, and how that private reality redefines everything we thought we knew about the man who preached from pulpits and rallied from podiums. Tucked within the historic heart of Chicago sits Jesse Jackson's private sanctuary, an expansive 350-square-foot brick colonial built in 1927, gracefully restored to blend timeless architecture with modern luxury, symbolizing a life rooted in struggle but resting in triumph. The journey begins down a tree-lined private driveway that signals both dignity and discretion, leading into a home that immediately asserts grandeur with its formal foyer, a sweeping staircase, and a layout designed not merely for living, but for entertaining and legacy-making. The eat-in kitchen flows into a bright family area, while the elegant dining room hosts both family gatherings and political power dinners. The living room with its gas fireplace connects to a sunroom and a converted gym, embodying both tradition and vitality. Upstairs, hardwood floors stretch into multiple bedrooms, the master suite boasting a second fireplace, dual vanities, a soaking tub, and a spa-like glass shower. The third floor offers private quarters perfect for extended family or staff, while the finished basement, with a custom wet bar and stone fireplace, transforms into an entertainment haven. But the true revelation awaits outdoors, a backyard that rivals luxury resorts, complete with an in-ground pool, a gourmet outdoor kitchen beneath blooming wisteria, a fire pit lounge, tennis court, baseball field, and even a 60x31 brick outbuilding. This is more than real estate, it's a lifestyle that balances quiet wealth with deep symbolism, reminding us that Jackson's message of empowerment extends not only to policy, but to personal space. Meticulously constructed with every architectural detail, echoing the life of a man who rose from protest to prestige. Despite his roots in the civil rights movement and his identity as a public servant, Jesse Jackson's financial portfolio tells a story of strategic growth, diverse income streams, and a net worth that now hovers around $10 million. This impressive wealth was not built overnight, nor is it solely a product of book deals or speaking engagements. It's the result of a decades-long transformation of influence into enterprise. Jackson's magnetic presence and legendary oratory made him one of the most sought-after public speakers in America, commanding significant fees for appearances at universities, global summits, and corporate events. In parallel, his work as an author brought royalties and academic recognition, with titles like Straight from the Heart and Legal Lynching becoming staples in classrooms and public debates. Hosting the CNN show, Both Sides with Jesse Jackson, further extended his media footprint, attracting sponsorships, endorsements, and consultancy offers. But the backbone of his empire remains the Rainbow Push Coalition, which Jackson founded and led, drawing millions in donations and grants for social programs, some of which also supported Jackson's personal income through leadership roles. Even his spiritual work as a Baptist minister, though less lucrative, elevated his brand, reinforcing his moral authority and increasing his value in the public sphere. Altogether, Jackson's wealth isn't just monetary, it's the compound interest of decades of strategic positioning, where every sermon, every speech, and every headline became part of a larger financial narrative. Jesse Jackson's origins are as compelling as his ascent, a child of the segregated South, born in Greenville, South Carolina in 1941, to a teenage mother and a married father, nearly 2 decades her senior. Jesse's identity was forged through hardship, dual-parent dynamics, and a yearning to transcend limitations. Raised in a community where black children were taught to dream small, Jackson's ambition broke the mold early. At Sterling High School, He was a standout, class president, academic top performer, and a sportsman, securing a football scholarship to the University of Illinois. But the classroom could never contain the fire building within him. He transferred to North Carolina A&T State University, a historically black college where he simultaneously thrived as quarterback and student body president, and began sharpening his voice as an activist. In 1964, he earned his sociology degree and moved to Chicago for seminary studies. But when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. came calling, the textbooks were left behind. Jackson's decision to leave the classroom for the movement wasn't impulsive, it was destiny. It marked the transition from student to soldier, from a local leader to a figure who would soon help shape the trajectory of civil rights on a national scale. His early life was not a warm-up act. It was the foundation of a legend in the making. When Jesse Jackson entered the orbit of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., it was more than a meeting of minds, it was a collision of purpose and potential that would forever alter the landscape of American activism. After joining the Southern Christian Leadership Conference (SCLC), Jackson quickly made his mark by launching the Chicago chapter and later leading Operation Breadbasket, a project aimed at pressuring white-owned businesses in black neighborhoods to hire black workers and invest in local communities. His bold, unapologetic style often clashed with King's more tempered approach, but it also carved out space for a new kind of leader, one who wasn't afraid to confront power directly and publicly. After King's assassination in 1968, Jackson's rift with SCLC leadership deepened, leading to his eventual departure and the founding of his own organization, Operation Push, People United to Save Humanity. This new movement combined spiritual inspiration with political activism, uniting sermons with social justice in a way that mobilized thousands and established Jackson as a national figure in his own right. Operation Push was not merely a response to King's death. It was Jackson's declaration of independence, proof that he could build his own following, forge his own mission, and carry the torch of civil rights into a new era. Through his oratory, charisma, and strategic organizing, Jesse Jackson transitioned from King's protege to a central pillar of the movement, redefining what black leadership could look like in the post-civil rights era and laying the groundwork for his future as a political contender. Jesse Jackson's leap into presidential politics was not only audacious, it was historic. When he announced his candidacy for the Democratic nomination in 1984, few believed that a black preacher activist from the south side of Chicago could be a serious contender for the presidency. But Jackson was not running for symbolism. He was running to shake the system. With a campaign platform that championed universal health care, free community college, the Equal Rights Amendment, prison reform, and diplomacy over militarism, he appealed to the disenfranchised and the idealistic alike. His message resonated, especially with marginalized communities, long ignored by the Democratic establishment. Though he didn't clinch the nomination in 1984, his showing was historic, and when he ran again in 1988, he emerged as a real threat to the frontrunners. After winning the Michigan caucus with 55% of the vote, Jackson at one point led the entire race, proving that a black candidate could not only compete but win in predominantly white states. Though the nomination ultimately went to Michael Dukakis, Jackson's campaign rewrote the rules of engagement in American politics. He forged the Rainbow Coalition, a multiracial alliance of progressives, immigrants, the poor and the working class, a framework later emulated by leaders like Barack Obama. His presence on the debate stage and in the polls forced both parties to confront issues they had long ignored. More than a political bid, Jackson's campaigns were a moral crusade, a call to arms for inclusion and equality that shifted the political Overton window and made the unimaginable possible. At the core of Jesse Jackson's life, behind the sermons, speeches, and strategic campaigns, is a family that has stood by him through the tumult and triumphs of public life. He married Jacqueline Lavinia Brown on December 31, 1962, forging a union that would endure through civil rights turbulence, national scrutiny, and personal tribulations. Together, they raised 5 children: Santita, a singer and political commentator; Jesse Jr., who served as a U.S. congressman; Jonathan, a business consultant; Yusef Dubois, and Jacqueline Lavinia. The Jackson household was not merely a private refuge, it was often an extension of the campaign trail, with family members appearing at rallies and conventions, standing not just as supporters but as extensions of the mission. Beyond the immediate family, Jesse's younger brother Chuck Jackson made his mark in the music industry as a member of the soul group, The Independents, and later as a solo artist, producing tracks with Marvin Yancey and helping launch Natalie Cole's career. These interwoven threads of political and cultural influence Jacksons reflect a family that didn't just exist in the background, but actively shaped the public sphere. The Jacksons weren't just a family, they were an institution. Yet, like many public figures, the weight of legacy often collided with the vulnerabilities of real life. Through every stage of his journey, Jesse Jackson's family remained both his support system and a mirror to his ambitions, grounding his activism in something far more personal: love, loyalty, and legacy. But no life lived so publicly can escape the scrutiny of scandal, and Jesse Jackson's most personal controversy became front-page news in 2001, when it was revealed that he had fathered a daughter, Ashley, during an extramarital affair with Karen Stanford, a staffer at the Rainbow Push Coalition. The revelation didn't just send shockwaves through the media, it struck at the heart of his carefully constructed moral persona. Financial records showed that Stanford had been paid around $36,000 in moving expenses and contract fees by the organization, with a promised $40,000 rescinded once the affair became public knowledge. Though legal, the situation ignited fierce criticism over ethics, misuse of funds, and the blurred lines between leadership and favoritism. Jackson publicly acknowledged the relationship and committed to supporting his daughter, reportedly paying $4,000 per month in child support. He temporarily withdrew from public appearances to contain the damage, but the long-term implications lingered. For many, it complicated his legacy; for others, it humanized him, a reminder that even the most towering figures stumble. The incident didn't dismantle Jackson's empire, but it added a footnote that continues to follow him. In a world where personal failings can eclipse decades of public service, Jackson's scandal served as a sobering reminder: the higher the pedestal, the harder the fall. Yet in true activist form, he weathered the storm, not unscathed, but unbroken. If scandal tested Jackson's image, illness would test his strength. In 2008, he was hospitalized with a minor case of viral gastroenteritis, but the more devastating news came nearly a decade later. In 2017, Jackson publicly announced that he had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, a progressive neurological disorder that affects movement, speech, and eventually autonomy. It was a jarring moment for a man whose voice had moved nations and whose physical presence had led marches across America. Still, Jackson refused to retreat. He adapted, focused on therapy, and adjusted his lifestyle while continuing to participate in events and issue statements on civil rights and political matters. But then came another blow. In August 2021, during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, Jesse and his wife Jacqueline tested positive and were hospitalized in Chicago. While Jackson's condition stabilized, Jacqueline's deteriorated rapidly, leading her to the ICU while he was transferred to a rehab facility to battle both the virus and the effects of Parkinson's. The health scare served as a painful reminder that even icons are not immune to the frailties of life. And yet, through every hospital stay, every diagnosis, and every round of physical therapy, Jesse Jackson continued to fight, not just for his life, but for the causes that defined it. His resilience in the face of declining health has inspired both admiration and sorrow, painting the portrait of a man who never stopped showing up, even when his body began to betray him. Jesse Jackson's story isn't just a chapter in American history, it's a saga of endurance, transformation, and unapologetic advocacy. From the segregated streets of Greenville to the grand halls of political power, from pulpit sermons to presidential campaigns, his legacy is one of both fire and flaw. He reshaped the rules of politics, gave voice to the unheard, and redefined what leadership could look like in Black America. Yet, he is also a man marked by scandal, struggle, and the slow erosion of time. His journey reminds us that greatness is not perfection, it is perseverance. Jackson's name belongs not just in textbooks, but in the echo of chants, the flicker of protest signs, and the silent dignity of every voter he inspired. As his health fades and his public appearances grow rarer, his influence remains, a guiding light for activists, politicians, and ordinary citizens who believe in the power of moral clarity and relentless action. His life is proof that even imperfect voices can move mountains, and even wounded feet can march forward. As we close this chapter, let us remember not just what Jesse Jackson stood for, but how he stood for it through every storm. If this story moved you, inspired you, or challenged your view of American leadership, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember, behind every icon lies a human story, flawed, fearless, and unforgettable.